Now, one of the key things at the demo stage, the ideation stage, that helps you lead and build this demo is this idea of a dance partner. This power of two concept now comes back in terms of the founders. One of the things that there's another myth that's out there, which is that Michael Dell built Dell, and Bill Gates built Microsoft, and Richard Branson built Virgin. And that partly is due to the fact there's a lot of stories out in the world, and the stories tend to focus on one person. But when you actually go back in and study any of these stories, any of the stories of companies that have done anything interesting, you'll find generally the evangelist is who the story gets told about. So Steve Jobs is who we focus on, and the Maven, who might have invented the product and actually came up with all the actual product that the evangelist went unsold, sat in the background and didn't really show up in any substantial way. That's partly to do with the fact that evangelists take up all the oxygen in the air, and Mavens don't really like to deal with the limelight and people, and they'd rather just be able to go work on what they're passionate about. But the key insight is that in this ideation stage, before you can even build that demo, one of the great services you could do for yourself is find that power of two. So the power of two in the ideation stage is those two complementary co-founders. So Steve Jobs had Steve Wozniak. Larry Ellison, the founder of Oracle, had Bob Miner. Scott Cook had Larry Prolix. Bill Gates had Paul Allen, and it goes on and on and on. Richard Branson had Nick Powell. So these examples, you'll see them time and time again. One of the challenges, of course, is that having developed our particular viewpoint of the world and developed our own personal talents and core energy, we might have a lot of judgment about the other person. We might think, Mavens tend to look at evangelists and think of them as kind of shysters, that don't know what they're talking about and just blab on for hours about that stuff. And evangelists might look at Mavens and say, gosh, that guy's the most boring person in the world. Unless you're talking about the one thing that they're interested in, they don't want to talk to you at all. So one of the challenges, and one of the lucky things that happens for the great successful entrepreneurs that start early, is a lot of they found their dance partner, their co-founder, when they were kids. They lived in the same neighborhood, they went to the same school, and they had an affinity for each other. And they said, hey, wait a second, what's going on here? And then they started working with each other very, very early on, and went through those internal barriers that come from seeing the world from your perspective, and reached across and started collaborating with that person. So a big part of this is because you've discovered what your core is and you've deepened it in pre-ideation. By the way, if you're in ideation right now and you realize that you haven't actually done very much work in terms of self-knowledge and understanding what your core energy and your core talents are, here's where the flexibility of the map comes in. You need to go back and do that. But you can do that while in ideation. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But it is a very important step, because now it allows you to then know yourself and then know what you're looking for in this complementary dance partner. Someone who doesn't have the same strengths and capabilities that you do, but complements your strengths and capabilities. A lot of the times it's kind of an MRE swap. So if my major is an evangelist, my minor is a Maven, I tend to work really well with other people who are major Mavens and minor evangelists. Because what creates that wonderful tension is that our minors are complementary. And so we can understand, we have that, we're tapped into that energy for ourselves. And so when the other person's going off and doing their thing, we can actually support them in that process. And likewise, they can support us. And yet there's a very clear distinction of what the roles are going to be. So finding that dance partner is really, really important. So now let's go back to our grid. So we talk about the source of funding. Again, the source of funding is still external. It's not the product. It's not the organization. It's not the venture itself. It's your job. It's your parents, whatever the external source is. On the line of the bootstrapper, it's not just the individual bootstrapper, but it's two bootstrappers, maybe three, but in all likelihood two, and that's probably a good number. And those two bootstrappers have found each other and have sought each other out and have come together to bring their complementary skills and talents together. So that Maven and the evangelist is a very, very obvious and common combination. What's also interesting is there's a certain leading this dance. In the ideation stage, it's the Maven's dance. That's the Maven that's leading the dance. The evangelist plays a minor role in the ideation stage. It's a supportive role, helping the Maven to come up with that demo. Because really the person creating that demo is ultimately going to probably be the Maven. But the evangelist can help the Maven to come up with that demo and be a sparring partner for them. Because intuitively, evangelists are always tapped into what is someone else going to, how am I going to tell someone else about this? What problems are they going to have? And so if they can inform the creation of the demo, that makes it even easier to go and talk to customers. So that power of two on the Bootstrap line is now the evangelist and the Maven, but with the Maven leading the dance and the evangelist supporting the dance in order for the creation of the third line, which is the product, i.e. the demo. Now, another myth that pervades the issue of product is, I've got this great invention, I should go patent it. This is one of those wrong actions at the wrong time. A patent is rarely going to give you, unless you already have one from some and you already own the patent, great, but a patent is rarely going to give you anything that's going to be truly defensible. You're not going to be able to defend that patent with the resources you have. If you get a competitor that has millions or billions of dollars in revenue, you're never going to be able to actually successfully defend that patent. Patents themselves take an inordinate amount of time to go and file and defend and actually get the actual official patent in your hands. Is a very time-consuming process. And so again, you're taking your scarce time, and are you focusing it on something that's fundamentally not defensible and probably doesn't really give you any kind of advantage, or are you going to focus on actually coming and creating that thing? A lot of the times patents are conversations that happen with investor-driven ventures, because they want to be able to say, what is this venture developed? And so that's where you see the split also of bootstrap ventures versus ventures where the investors get involved in a very, very early part of the stage. Returning to that capital piece, a lot of the times people want to get that capital in from that investor at this point. And that's simply not going to serve the venture or the founders at this point.